Our guest speaker for this evening, Delegate Mark Kim, represents the 35th District in Virginia's House of Delegates. In his second term, he is the first Asian-born immigrant to serve in the Virginia General Assembly. Mark is the son of a Presbyterian minister and passionate advocate for the underprivileged. When he first heard about New Life Foundation's vision this past summer when we met with him, he was so moved that he jumped at the opportunity to be our guest speaker. And not only that, he's been very supportive in all of our activities to date. I'm so excited to welcome him to the stage again this evening to share a few remarks. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Steve, for that introduction. And frankly, I am the least important part of this program tonight, which is the reason why I wanted to just get through my part of this tonight. As you just saw over the last 45 minutes or so, the young men and women that were up here on stage, I can't describe, I'm sure most of you can't either, with words. The emotion, the feeling, the change in your heart that you hear when you hear music. And all of us know as lovers of music that music is something that transcends race, gender, religions. In fact, there are no boundaries. And all around the world today, people are enjoying music because music is a universal language. But that's something I wanted to talk to you a little bit about today. The reason I decided that I wanted to get involved with this organization a few months ago when I met Michelle, and by the way, Michelle, congratulations on this wonderful program today, and all the volunteers that Steve and Sarah and Bill and so many other people put this together tonight. But as I met Bill and Michelle and Steve and talked about their vision for this, what I realized was what they're trying to accomplish here tonight by raising the funds to bring these orphans from Korea to come to America to learn music isn't something that just comes out of their own hearts. They're musical prodigies, and there are plenty of other places that they can spend their time and talents supporting other organizations. And in fact, I get asked a lot to support different organizations that I'm always willing to support. But this one was different, especially when Michelle talked about the incident when she was in Korea, and they were doing a missionary trip with her youth band, and just by luck, just by bad luck, they were missing a trumpet player at this concert that they had to perform. And somebody suggested maybe they reach out to one of the local orphanages in Korea and see if there might be somebody that might be able to fill that spot. And so Michelle called randomly through some numbers, and they just, by miraculous happenstance, found a young woman who was a trumpet player who had been isolated on her own, sitting in an orphanage all her life because she had no parents, no loved ones around them. And the only instrument that she knew was the trumpet, not because she chose the trumpet, but because the trumpet chose her. Because if you're sitting in an orphanage, you don't have choices of what instruments you want to play. It just happens to be whoever has an instrument, that's the instrument that you're introduced to. And so that's how she discovered and refocused the attention and the mission of the New Life Foundation to one that focuses on those kids that are truly the most needy in this world, orphans, those without parents, without loved ones, without peers, who have no future whatsoever because their life and destiny is predestined by where they are in their circumstances. And yet, Michelle and her friends here thought, by music, that universal language that we talked about, perhaps there's a way that they can reach them in ways that no other resources can. And so this effort that we're trying to raise tonight, the funds, about $100,000, will pay for about 50 of these orphans to come from Korea all the way here, spend a week here with the NSO, and to learn that art of music, so that when they go back home after Christmas, they can perhaps use that as a hope, as a lifeline that will lead them to something better. And as I thought about this, and the reason why I was so touched and so moved to want to help, it reminded me of my childhood. Even though I've had a blessed childhood with two parents, like many of you, and healthy and economically stable family, I remember what my mother told me about when she was growing up. Like many of you in this room, I'm what we call the 1.5 generation. I came to America when I was 14 years old. I was born in Korea, but lived most of my life overseas. So I consider myself a half Korean, half American bridge. But my parents' generation, and many of you in this room might remember that, those that were born in the 20s and 30s and 40s, they suffered through the Korean War. June 25, 1950, when North Koreans invaded the South and went through Seoul, left behind them devastation. Hundreds and thousands of Koreans, civilians and military, murdered, devastated, their lives falling apart. So many of them lost their parents, including my parents. And by the end of that 3 years of war, July 27th, 1953, when the war was over, and by January of 1954, when my mother, who escaped to Busan, came back to Seoul, they had absolutely nothing. The streets were littered with orphans, children with no place to go, no hope whatsoever. They were destined to just live on the streets for the rest of their lives with no economic opportunities whatsoever. The American soldiers were there. Faith-based organizations came. Many, many others came to reach out to them. And many still since then have been able to be given that lifeline where at least 1 out of 10 Korean Americans today in this country are an American orphan who came from Korea as an adoptee. And we have Korean Americans, Korean adoptees all around the world who are living a better life because others came to reach out to them. But you would think that that story was just about the Korean War and the devastations. But sadly, no. Today, in the year 2013, South Korea still has one of the largest populations of abandoned children. Today in Korea, South Korea, we still have so many kids who are needing families who have absolutely no hope. Just like those kids in the 1950s, like my mother was when she was abandoned on the streets. They have no future, but somebody reaching out to them. And although orphanages and orphans and widows are something that we always often talk about as those people that need the most help, orphans are different. They really are different. I brought the Bible with me today because this morning I missed service because I had some health issues, and so I reflected on some passages without going to the service myself. And as I was reading through the passages, I came across a couple of passages I thought I might share with you. After Moses left Egypt, looking for his promised land, and God sent him and his people down to the promised land, and he gave them the commandments. He gave them all kinds of instructions, and many of you know the stories in Exodus. In Exodus 22, he talked about those things that you must do. One of those, he said, one of the warnings that God gave was to make sure you treat the widows and orphans in a special way. So you shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. If you afflict them in any way, they cry out to me, I will surely hear their cry, and my wrath will become hot. God has a special place in his heart for orphans. But he also has a very special punishment for those that harm them, because orphans are different. And sometimes we think that, well, all of us in this room, we're blessed. We're okay. We're in America. We're living a great life. Economically and otherwise, we're healthy. Why should we care about them? Because frankly, whether we have parents or not, whether we have family or not, all of us in a grand way, we're all orphans. And so another passage that I found this morning was when, just like when Moses was asked to go to the promised land, he didn't make it, Joshua did, but Moses went for that. And for 2,000 years after that, they wandered aimlessly until Christ came. And with Christ, he gave us another second opportunity at the promised land. And as he walked with us for 3 years, as he taught us, and as he was done after the resurrection, as he was about to leave, he left us another message to the disciples. In the book of John, chapter 14, he talked about how I may be gone, I may not physically be here with you, but if you, my children, if you, my disciples, if you love me, keep my commandments. And I will pray the Father, and he will give you another helper, that he may abide with you forever. The Spirit of truth, whom the world cannot receive because it neither sees nor knows him, but you know him, for he dwells with you, and he will be with you. I will not leave you orphans, because I will come to you. God promises us that if we believe, that we embrace the Holy Spirit, that Holy Spirit will become our parent, become our fathers, and that none of us will be orphans ever again. And so even though we have 50 children in Korea right now, begging and yearning and dying for our attention, so that we may bring them to the United States for a week, a short week, to enjoy that music, and to be able to enjoy the life that you and I have in freedom in America. They will not be forever lost, because the Holy Spirit is with them. And then until we are able to reach them through Holy Spirit and beyond, the next best we can do is perhaps reach them with this music, this beautiful gift of music that they gave us today. These young men and women that were up here today, the prodigies, they have a special gift. God has blessed them in such a way where they were given special talents that you and I don't have. I know I don't have that talent. They have that special talent. They are willing to spend their time and their talent to go reach out across the country to Korea and to talk to these kids, to give them that sense of hope and train them and to develop and nurture their talent so that they may use that music to develop that hope that they need. And maybe one day they can be that spark in Korea. Maybe they can be that spark across the world to help us with the second coming when Jesus said, "We will be with you." Maybe they will find that sense of comfort that the Holy Spirit can give in the way that they can find with their music, with their trumpet, their flute, their cello, their piano. So until and unless they are able to have that comfort, you and I have a responsibility as well. We who live in this land of abundance, milk and honey, we've been blessed. All of us are able to have good employment, great jobs, wonderful family lives. Whether you live in Virginia or Maryland, we have incredible resources around us. Would you consider, please, tonight, would you consider, please, reaching into your pockets and sharing what you have with our children in Korea? And there are thousands and thousands of others all around South Korea, as well as North Korea, the Gochevis that we've heard about. We can't boil the ocean. We can't solve that problem. We can't stop all the orphanages from shutting down and finding homes for them all. We can't stop women and men from abandoning their children. That's for another day, another problem. What we can do is for those that we can touch ourselves, we can try to reach them. And the best way that you and I can do in America is to share a little bit of our resources. So tonight, as we wrap up this event, I want you all to take a look at the program book. There was an envelope that was enclosed in that book. And the envelope has a little pledge form, along with a little brochure about the New Life Foundation. And I know that many of you didn't come here tonight to be listening to one of these telethons and fundraising pitches. We appreciate that. We certainly don't expect that everybody will walk out here with a check written out to us. But if anything that you saw tonight for the last 45 minutes touches your heart, and if anything that you have felt tonight makes you feel that there's something more that you can give to make this world a better place, and by starting with a very concrete step of having 51 students from Korea come to the United States at the cost of $2,100 per person to be able to come here and experience the joy of music, and that they leave here with a sense of hope, a little bit of the Holy Spirit that they take with them back to their orphanages, that they can maybe touch their friends and families there. If you are willing to do that, we ask that you consider supporting this. We got a pledge form here. We'll come back and talk to you a little bit more about the instructions, but I think we're going to watch a little video of at least a couple of the kids that are in Korea right now that could certainly use your help. So as we watch this video, I really hope, and I ask that maybe some of you who are believers maybe you can pray with us internally, but see what you can do for us, because this is worth the cause that we can support. Thank you.